Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dursey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of APA and Chair of the New Urbanism Division, and I am your webcast moderator. Today is Friday, February 26th. We will hear the presentation, Award-Winning Sustainability. For technical help during today's webcast, type your questions in the chat box found in the webcast toolbar to the right of your screen, or you can call the 1-800 number shown. And for your content questions related to the presentation, type those in the questions box also located to the right of your screen. We will answer those at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. And please list which speaker you would like to answer your question. Coming up on your screen is a list of the sponsoring chapters and divisions for 2016. Thanks to all the participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible and free to their members. Today's webcast is sponsored by the Sustainable Communities Division, which we'll hear more about in a moment. To learn about all of our divisions, visit planning.org/divisions. To learn about our chapters, planning.org/chapters. And coming up on your screen is a list of our most upcoming webcasts. To register for these webcasts and see a complete list and a growing list always, visit our webcast webpage at ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. To log your credits for attending today's event, visit planning.org and either at the top of the page select activities by provider and typing in today's provider, Sustainable Communities, the event will come up, or you can try typing in the event number into the search function, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. This webcast has been approved for 1.5 CM credits for live viewing only. We do have recorded webcasts that are available for distance education credit. And to check those out, visit our webpage, again, at ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. And like us on Facebook, Planning Webcast Series, to receive up-to-date information on all of our sessions. We are recording today's webcast. It will be available on our YouTube channel. Just search Planning Webcast on YouTube. And a PDF of the PowerPoint will be available after the presentation is concluded on our webcast webpage. I'm now going to turn it over to Jennifer Koch, who is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Sustainable Communities Division of APA, and she's going to kick us off. Jennifer.
Thanks, Christine. So, as Christine said, I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Sustainable Communities Division, and our goal as a division is to support planners who are working to integrate all aspects of sustainability into our work as planners. And one way that we do this is by coordinating a series of webinars through the Planning Webcast series. So we want to always give a big thank you to our sponsors. Here are our 2015 to 2016 sponsors. We're currently bringing on sponsors for our April 2016 to April 2017 sponsorship year. So far we have several returning sponsors and many new sponsors. So if you're interested in supporting the division, please feel free to contact me or contact Scott Turner, who is our division chair. Our contact information is listed on this slide. And we also have several ongoing initiatives and programs, and you can learn more about those on our website and our social media. We also have a bi-weekly e-bulletin that we send out with a lot of information about interesting webinars and news and tools and resources. So if you want to sign up for that, you can do so on our blog site, sustainableplanning.net. You should also feel free to send us an email if you have any webinar ideas or other ideas for the division, or if you're just interested in volunteering. We're always looking for more help. The Sustainable Communities Division is in our third year of giving out the Excellence in Sustainability Awards. And these awards honor projects, plans, policies, individuals, and organizations who are dedicated to supporting and growing sustainable communities. So our speakers today are award winners from last year's awards, but if you're interested in applying for this year's awards, as a note, please check our website, sustainableplanning.net. The deadline is on Monday, the 29th, so it's coming up fast, but there's still time. And the award winners will be announced at a reception on April 3rd during the National Conference in Phoenix. So you can find out more information about all of that on our website. But today we've invited 4 winners of last year's awards to share information and lessons learned from their award-winning plans, programs, projects, policies. So they're going to showcase 4 very different projects from 4 very different places. We have Neil Angus, who will discuss the Devens Sustainable Housing Pilot Project, which is a completed project that won our Sustainable Development Project Award. Rhonda Fast will discuss the Crystal Springs Creek Habitat Restoration projects, which won the Sustainable Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Project Award. Justin Golbabai will give an overview of the City of Austin Neighborhood Partnering Program, which was the Leadership in Sustainability winner. And John Zeanah will discuss the Midsouth Regional Greenprint and Sustainability Plan, which won the Sustainable Law, Policy, or Plan Award. So we hope that these case studies will give you some ideas for thinking about sustainability at a variety of scales and many different locations. And with that, I will get us started and pass things off to Neil.
All right, thanks, Jen. So I'm going to talk about the Devens Sustainable Housing Project, pilot project. It was basically 8 single-family homes and 12 multi-unit homes. And the purpose of the pilot project was to demonstrate how you could build very high-efficient, net-zero energy homes for little or no added cost over traditional built homes. So just to give you guys a little overview of where Devens is and where the project is, we're located about 35 miles outside of Boston. Devens is a former military base that was closed down in 1993. It's about 4,400 acres. The Army left us with some wonderful presents in the form of a Superfund site. So there's a lot of remediation and cleanup that has occurred here. But in 1993, when the base closed down, there was a sustainable redevelopment directive from the surrounding communities based on the amount of contamination and activity that had happened in the past. The surrounding communities really wanted to see this area redevelop in a much more sustainable manner. So since the closure in 93, we've redeveloped over 5.5 million square feet of commercial industrial development. We've created over 4,500 jobs. That was a big focus with the military as a huge employer in the area. Getting jobs back was a huge focus. Very little residents in the area, about 400 total, have moved back into Devens. But we also have about 1,800 acres of open space, so a good amount of open space. So since 1993, we've really focused on the work and play aspects of a community, but since 2007 we've really been focusing on the living aspect and really making it a truly holistic and sustainable community. So the pilot, as I mentioned, was 8 single-family homes and 12 multi-family homes, and the project was really a partnership between Mass Development, who is the state economic development agency, so they own and manage the land and all the utilities and infrastructure in Devens, and the Devens Enterprise Commission, who's the permitting and regulatory authority, who I work with. So we do all the environmental permitting, planning, zoning, conservation, all that kind of stuff. So together, Mass Development and the Devens Enterprise Commission, or the DEC, which I'll refer to throughout the presentation, we both basically serve the same functions as a typical municipal government, just we share those responsibilities. The developer of the homes, the single-family homes was done by Transformations Inc., and the multifamily homes were done by Metric. both Massachusetts-based firms. So why did we decide on this pilot, and why did Mass Development decide on the pilot? Mass Development, as the landowner and State Economic Development Agency, really wanted to showcase sustainable technologies and residential green building practices, like I said earlier, to kind of show how these practices can be implemented for little or no additional cost over traditional building. And they also wanted to try and further the state goal. The state of Massachusetts has a goal of achieving net zero energy buildings by 2030. So really trying to assist with that market transformation and getting to net zero energy buildings. It was really done also for social equity purposes, really to show that green building is not just for those who can afford it, that it is financially feasible. It doesn't have to look any different than traditional type development. It can look the same and fit in with the existing character of the neighborhood, and really show that it's replicable and basically educate people on how these things can be done. Green building, water efficiency, and healthy indoor air quality can all be done for little or no added cost. So just to give you guys a little more idea of where these projects are located in Devens, there were, as I mentioned earlier, Devens is a Superfund site. So these homes were built on former brownfields that were cleaned up to unrestricted residential standards. So it is brownfield redevelopment. It was the old Army infrastructure. It was an old Army housing area. So the developer was able to utilize the existing infrastructure that was in place. And the location that Mass Development chose, they really focused on areas that were highly accessible with existing streets, sidewalks, connections to trails, nearby amenities and services. This map basically shows all the red dots, show the red dashed lines are trails, sidewalks. The red area you see on the bottom of the screen is our commercial core. So most of the commercial core is within a half-mile walking or biking distance of the housing project. The project is also located very close proximity to a number of jobs and employment centers, which is the blue you see on the right side of the screen, as well as close to some open space areas that are shown here in green, some active open space areas, recreational fields. So it's a really ideal location for redevelopment and neighborhood development. To begin the project, to really look at more sustainable approaches to housing, we had to take a look at our existing regulations, the Devens Enterprise Commission, and it really forced us to do a full regulation audit of identifying barriers to more sustainable approaches to development. So through that process, we looked at reducing our lot sizes requirements and our frontage requirements, basically to allow the developer to create a typical cluster type development. Our minimum lot sizes from 1999, I think, is when we developed our regulations. Minimum lot size was like 15,000 square feet, minimum frontage of 100 feet. So those are kind of traditional, suburban type lot sizes and frontages. So when we're really trying to promote innovative development, we looked at, opportunities to reduce those. So we actually changed our regulations to accommodate more compact development and add to some of the existing open space in the area. And the picture you see on the bottom of the screen is one of the houses that were completed. This is the actual initial subdivision plan that was approved by our commission. So it's a fairly suburban type development still, but a little more compact than what we have currently, or what we had currently at Devens. So as I said, the project was developed to really showcase the energy efficiency, water efficiency, and indoor air quality aspects, and show how they could be done in a cost-effective manner. So Mass Development really led the charge by selecting the right developer who was very familiar with these types of construction techniques. Some of the techniques that were involved in the housing included the double wall construction, which is the picture you see in the background of this slide, is the double wall construction before it was insulated. That allows for a full insulated barrier, unrestricted barrier throughout the whole house. So it's a basically 12 inches of insulation around the whole house, triple glazed windows, low or no VOC paints, sealants, adhesives, coatings, and really good air sealing, gap sealing to really build a tight building envelope. And the developer's motto was always, he always told me it was, if you build it tight, you got to ventilate right. And that's an important point for indoor air quality in terms of preserving indoor air quality. He also installed everything with EPA WaterSense plumbing fixtures, and these types of building techniques are a great use for climate mitigation and adaptation, because basically because he's building a double wall construction, he's building a stronger building. It's more resilient. It can last. The inside air temperatures are more constant for longer periods, so it can sustain prolonged power outages. So a lot of really good benefits. And I said earlier in the presentation about doing this for the same price as traditional construction. With double walls and 12 inches of insulation and triple pane windows, you've got higher material costs. But the developer was able to do this in a cost-neutral fashion because of the method of construction, the open floor plan, smaller floor plans than your typical homes, 2,000, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 square foot floor plans. So that allowed for natural daylighting, passive solar heating. There are no central heating or cooling systems in these houses, so that can save up to $10,000 from no duct work, no central boiling system. Basically, all they use to heat this house or air condition it is what you see in the background of this picture. In the top right is a Mitsubishi Mr. Slim HVAC unit. It has a little small compressor outside, but basically one of these on each floor is their heating and cooling system for the house. And the picture on the bottom right is a tankless hot water system, which helps additional energy efficiency, and the house doesn't have a big hot water tank that's always keeping water warm. So a couple more elements of energy efficiency and affordability from the outside of the buildings. The developer maximized the east-west long access of the building and maximize passive solar by having south-facing windows and using the roof lines for solar shading. That works for shading in the summer, and it doesn't shade in the winter. So like I said before, these are right-sized homes too. They're run from 1,000 square feet to 2,200 square feet. The results were better than we could have expected. For those of you who don't know what the HERS index is, it's a home energy rating scale. It rates a house on its energy efficiency, 100 being least efficient, basically a code-built house, and 0 being basically using no energy at all, a very high efficiency house. The homes were targeted to be net zero, and they ended up, all the single-family homes ended up being energy positive, so producing more energy than they consume over an average year. This house in the picture here on the right was featured in Solar Today magazine, and it won a EPA energy award. It has a HERS rating of -36, which means it generates more electricity than it uses over a year. So we did a little rough estimate with the developer, and they've factored in if this house had an electric vehicle, they could basically live carbon neutral and drive up to 30,000 miles a year because of the house is generating more electricity than it actually consumes. So we're really impressed with that, that amount. From outdoor other outdoor strategies, the applicant did implement a number of LID features. There's no gutters on these homes, so water infiltrates directly into the ground. Pervious walkways, rain gardens. So basically no runoff comes from this subdivision at all. We had them implement street tree requirements as well. Helps reduce the urban heat island effect and adds to the green infrastructure elements in Devens. Different housing styles. You can see here one of the ranch houses. This was purchased by an elderly couple who wanted all access on the first floor. So it's been a great project. We've done numerous educational sessions and tours throughout the project, and all the homes were sold out very quickly. The best part of this whole pilot project was that it helped us as the regulatory agency gain public support and justify additional regulation updates in 2013. We basically took it a step further than the pilot and looked at focusing on neighborhood design aspects, looked at a little more dense development, further reducing our lot sizes and setbacks to create a little bit higher density and carrying on those features of energy efficiency, water efficiency, and indoor air quality. Those regulation updates included a number of, they really focused on form, as I mentioned earlier, rather than the energy efficiency, because we already kind of covered those items. So we looked at neighborhood form as well as healthy, active lifestyles, you know, proximity to open space, making sure the street networks were complete and walkable, and accommodate all levels of activity from, you know, ADA accessibility, biking, walking, you name it. All our regulations are available online at devensec.com. What happened, and this is the best part, is from those new regulations and from the pilot project, we've already had another 124 units of net zero energy homes, townhomes, and apartment buildings approved in a whole new neighborhood within Devens, another old Army housing neighborhood. We've added affordable aspects into that. Like I said, a little higher density with our new regulations, and the energy efficiency features have been carried over. We've implemented green infrastructure activities as well too, parks, community garden, open space. You know, proximity to open space is really important for creating healthy, socially engaging communities. So phase 1 is under construction. Really some great results from this pilot. Building consensus for additional density and the climate mitigation and adaptation strategies that all these green building and green infrastructure activities really enhance. And really the market transformation, increasing the demand for a better product, showing that it can be done in a cost-effective manner. Pretty much covered all these items. Triple bottom line approach, it's really fulfilling our master plan for a more sustainable Devens. So with that, I will turn it over to Rhonda.
Hi, hold on as I get everything squared away here. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Rhonda Fast. I am an environmental program coordinator at Environmental Services at the City of Portland. First, I want to thank the American Planning Association for the 2015 Excellence in Sustainability Award. We were honored to receive this award and share it with all the partners who contributed to the projects. And today I'm going to tell you a story actually about two projects in a park in Portland called Westmoreland Park. One that restored a half-mile stream that flows through the park, and another to create an innovative play area. But the story is a lot more than these two discrete projects. It's a story about salmon recovery, it's about climate change, and it's about play, and it's about improving people's connections to nature. But first, I want to talk to you about salmon. Many of you may not be surprised to hear that salmon pass through Portland. For those of you not familiar with Portland's geography, Portland is located generally at the convergence of the great Willamette rivers and Columbia rivers. And here's downtown right here. So we're at the convergence of these two great rivers, about 100 river miles upstream from the Pacific Ocean. And we have 15 fish species found in Portland that are threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act, including Chinook, salmon, coho, steelhead trout, cutthroat. So you can see that salmon pass through Portland, but they also use Portland area streams for rearing and spawning, despite the fact that, like many urban areas, our streams are highly urbanized with significant barriers. But rarely, it seems, can people who live in urban areas say that salmon swim through their city or through their neighborhood. But in the southeast part of Portland and the Selwood neighborhood, people can. Crystal Springs Creek here is one of many Portland streams, and a lot of salmon recovery effort is focused here, and I'll tell you why and what we're doing. To orient you, Crystal Springs is a 2.4 mile long creek. It's relatively short. It bubbles out of the ground, literally, it's spring-fed near Reed College and the Eastmoreland Golf Course. It's the lowermost tributary to Johnson Creek before Johnson Creek flows into the Willamette River, and there's no barriers between it and the Pacific Ocean. But like many urban areas, there's things like culverts, like this one, which is way too narrow, and it changed the hydrology of the stream such that it blocked fish passage, especially for juvenile salmon. There are 9 others in the system that caused fish passage problems. So in 2010, we started a major effort acknowledging that Crystal Springs could host salmon populations and used to host salmon populations. We focused our energy here. $2 million worth of seed money to replace or remove as many culverts as we could, but 9 were the real problem culverts. And we've done 7 so far, 7 out of the 9, with ones that are a lot wider, that include habitat features like rocks and open bottoms. We have 2 to go. The last 2 culverts will be replaced this summer, actually. And salmon have already responded. This amazing photo taken in 2013 is an otter feasting on a winter steelhead soon after we replaced some culverts downstream from Reed College. We've known that salmon have been using the system, but not nearly in the numbers that our oral history accounts have told us. But we did know that Crystal Springs has all the right characteristics to support salmon runs. It has cool, consistent year-round flows. And modeling that we've done shows that even in the face of climate change, restoration efforts would improve salmon runs up to 400-some%. But culverts aren't the only issue facing this creek. Stream temperature is also a really big issue. There are 3 relatively large inline ponds in the system. And right in the middle of the system was one called the Duck Pond. It's 2.5 acres right in the middle of Westmoreland Park. Now, the Duck Pond increased water temperatures about 6 degrees to temperatures lethal to salmon. And at the headwaters at Crystal Springs, temperatures are consistently very low, around 50 to 55 degrees, well within the salmon spawning and rearing benchmarks. But by the time you get to the Duck Pond, stream temperatures spike to 70 degrees or more. Now, the Duck Pond was originally constructed as a model yacht lagoon in 1936 as part of a Works Progress Administration, WPA, project. Now, the lagoon later became known as the Duck Pond due to the high numbers of ducks and geese that congregated there. A little bit more on that later. Now, historically, this section of creek was a complex system of braided channels and wetlands. And the wetlands were drained and the creek was channelized for farming and then residential development purposes in the late 1800s. But Westmoreland Park has always been a very well-used park. There are numerous sports fields. The historic casting pond, which is right in the middle here, the square, that is literally a casting pond. It was built around the same time as the model yacht lagoon for fly casting competitions, and it is historic. It's actually offline from the creek. It was designed to be in line with the creek, but it's not connected to the creek hydrologically. There's tennis courts here at this park. There's picnic areas, and while some people and of course the duck pond. And while some people loved the open water views, in the late 90s and early 2000s, many residents noted that the park was showing signs of considerable degradation. The concrete curbs that lined the creek, installed by the WPA project, were collapsing, and the high groundwater consistently inundated pathways and the playground. And already sparse habitat along the creek and pond were further degraded by overpopulation of ducks and geese, including some domestic species who people routinely fed and even dumped in the park. It became blatantly clear over time that this particular section of creek was suffering from some pretty severe water quality issues, including sedimentation, temperature, like I mentioned, and bacteria, too. In the late 90s, Chinook salmon and steelhead trout were listed under the Endangered Species Act, and that kind of was a wake-up call for the community. People really started making a connection between public health and watershed health. And at that time, Portland Parks and Recreation initiated a master plan process for the park, and Crystal Springs restoration rose to the top as a key component of that plan. And it kind of kicked off. It took a while to get funding and get some momentum, but Audubon Society of Portland started it off with a campaign to deter feeding ducks and geese, and they even helped us relocate 30 domestic ducks and geese who couldn't fly out to farms and homes throughout the region. And this is basically what the plan looked like. It took about 10 years to get funding. But at the north end, the duck pond is gone, and in its place there's a wetland, and the stream re-meanders through the park. We got about a half a mile of stream restoration and about an acre of wetland. New pathways, repurposed picnic benches, and lighting. And here's a picture during construction, so you can kind of see the new stream channel. There's large wood installed in the creek to help with habitat, and we had to remove some trees from the site for grading, and those were reused as large wood in the stream. We planted nearly 15,000 new plants that will shade the creek and prevent erosion. And this new boardwalk goes over the new wetland area, and there's views of the creek there, and that was a big component of the plan. And it's ideal for waterfowl. And now that the duck pond is gone, that 6-degree rise is negated. It's no longer there. And eventually, as the plants grow and shade the stream, we may even get cooling. That's the hope. Now, the restoration project, it displaced the play area. Portland Parks and the community came together to shape a new play area for the park. And the themes and goals of the restoration project fit perfectly with a nature play initiative gaining momentum in the park system. Now, nature play is a concept inspired by a 2005 book that I highly recommend, Last Child in the Woods, Nature Deficit Disorder by Richard Louv. That book discusses research that suggests that children are growing up disconnected from nature, and that play in natural environments improves language skills and collaboration, imagination, and creativity, supports positive social development, enhances balance and agility and overall health, even nearsightedness. And neighborhood input made it clear that Westmoreland was the ideal spot to pilot a nature play area. And then this play area, the design that you can see here was designed by Greenworks PC, a landscape architecture firm here in Portland. And it aimed to create opportunities for children to explore, discover, take risks, and learn in a new way that traditional playground equipment doesn't. And the final design includes custom features like a creek mound and a fountain where people can manipulate water flow, and an area to build forts with loose parts. Log climbers and slides using trees from the side as well. And boulder scrambles with varying degrees of difficulty for climbing, balancing, and unstructured play. And today, the park is now a hub for environmental education. The nature play area, the boardwalk, the new trails are the perfect backdrop for a revived salmon celebration in collaboration with Native American community members, celebrating the return of salmon in the city. This coming fall will be our 3rd year, and the first year we timed it perfectly with a coho run. They were actually in the creek, in the park, spawning during the event for the first time in decades. It's pretty amazing. And pulling this off was no small feat, but because the focus was broader than a park renovation, it became about restoration of an entire watershed, not just a park project, and that really worked to our advantage. Innovative partnerships emerged with a lot of different partners, and this list is incomplete, but we had project partners here that helped with heavy lifting and funding. We had grant funders. We had regulatory partners, because permitting is a really big component of pulling these projects off. Whenever you work in the water, you're dealing with state, federal, local permits, and we needed coordination and help from all these agencies to get their approval. And then partners in the neighborhoods to build capacity and enable others to be spokespeople for the projects. That was a really big deal. And then you may balk, but the total cost for all this work is $16 million. But for that, we get 9 culverts and restoration along nearly half the length of the entire stream, centered by the 2 projects at Westmoreland Park. But we were able to leverage over half from federal partners, grants, and local agencies. And a lot of luck kind of came together at the same time. So some key takeaways: never underestimate the power of leveraging, and go big. Because when you open a project up to achieve multiple objectives, not just one, you can open doors to funding sources and leveraging opportunities that may not have been possible with a singular focus. And it's never too late to build that base of support and build that base of neighborhood expertise that will help sustain a project in the long term with a base of stewardship. So again, thanks APA. Really glad to share this story with you. And here's a few resources if you're interested. And I'm going to hand it over now to Justin.
Great. I'm really excited to share this presentation with you, and super impressed with what everyone else has done. This is awesome, an awesome webinar. My name is Justin Golbabai. I'm the program manager for the City of Austin's Neighborhood Partnering Program. I think we have the coolest program in the City of Austin, and I'm excited to share it with you. So in a nutshell, what the Neighborhood Partnering Program is a way for neighborhoods to take their ideas for their neighborhood, a pocket park, pavilion, things like that, and take that from concept, napkin, sketch, all the way through construction. And how do we do that? So our program really finds itself kind of with 3 main questions. How do you make great places? How do you empower people? And how do you make it accessible to everybody? And one of the things, as planners, I'm a planner myself. In Austin, we have plans in spades. We have a comprehensive plan. We've got neighborhood plans and watershed plans and sidewalk plans. And plans are great. It is one of the ways we make great places, by planning things out and thinking comprehensively about things. But from a citizen's perspective, sometimes planning a little bit feels like this. It feels like there's all these rules and regulations, and what if I just want something simple done in my neighborhood? Like, how can it be easy? How can it be made easy? And as government, I work for a city, and all those rules and all those regulations, they're there for a reason. And it's and it's tough for just an ordinary citizen to navigate that. And if you really think about it for yourself, if you had an idea and you wanted to pitch it to your city government, like who would you even go to? Who is that person where you can pitch a hairball idea to? And in that sense, that's kind of where our program fits in, is to be that sounding board. And if you think about planning in Austin in particular, we've got this great history of incremental planning, incrementalism within planning. And in Austin, a lot of our funky and our coolest spaces are really these spaces that aren't professionally planned, but kind of have popped up. And in Austin, we've got this slogan, "Keep Austin Weird." We've got all these little murals and graffiti that have become kind of folklore in Austin. But how do we actually make that incrementalism cool and legitimate? And I think one of the things that has happened is guerrilla planning has kind of come along. People who are well-intentioned, they want to do great work, and they come across a city government that tells them no. They just end up doing things anyways. And is there any in-between in that? And so our program really tries to be that in-between for a neighborhood to take an idea, to rally their neighborhood behind their idea, and have a simple process where they contact city staff, do an application, get approval, and then have the resources and we as a city to construct those ideas. And so we're kind of a turnkey operation where we're planning and then constructing as well. I'm a city planner. I also work with an engineer, and it's kind of a city planning engineering tag team, this program. So how does it work? So usually the way it works is a neighborhood has an idea. They see an area that needs a little bit of love, and they contact me, kind of pitching their idea for what that space could be. We go through a process, and we take those concepts, and we run it all the way through to actually putting their ideas on the ground. And we try to do this within about 18 months from start to finish. And so we've done about 30 of these projects that are in the queue. The idea is also how do you empower people? So how do you have neighborhoods do what they do best? Think of the ideas, provide the artistic elements, and then we as a city, we can bring the heavy equipment and do what we do best. And by doing that, we end up building places that really no one's ever seen before. Those cool, unique spaces that take that collaborative partnership to the next level. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about kind of the mechanics of how this program works and operates. And I think it's easily replicable for any city. I don't think it's Austin specific at all. So I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to copy our program and bring it to your neighborhood. So we start with that the people who are allowed to apply are neighborhood associations. We have neighborhood plans that have specific contact teams here. They're eligible to apply. Rowing clubs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, nonprofits, cultural civic organizations. And so these are but you have to be part of a group. It's not just, we're not working with individuals, we're working with groups and neighbors and civic-minded folks within our community. Then they have to propose a project which is on city property or an appropriate easement. The right-of-way counts, since we operate most of the right-of-way within the city of Austin. The project has to be submitted by a community group, and then they get a petition, have to go door to door and get 60% of people who live around where they're proposing the project to sign their petition supporting the project. And then the community group has to agree to maintain the project for the life of the project. That's mostly the landscaping elements of the project. That's the the artistic elements of projects. But if we're building a sidewalk, for example, or something the city has to maintain, we'll obviously maintain that themselves. So again, one of the big things that the neighborhood has to do to go through this process is get support for their project. So in this example, there was the neighborhood wanted to put this trail along the creek. We defined a polygon for them, and they had to go door to door and collect at least 60% of the houses that lived along this creek that we thought would be affected by this project. And that's pretty typical. Now, the other component of how this program works is it's a cost match program. And when we think of cost matching, we think of usually of cash. And so, indeed, some neighborhoods do match with cash. This neighborhood here raised over $20,000 by selling these yard signs for $100 a piece and they were able to use that to leverage with our program to match with our program. But it doesn't have to be cash, and that's part of what it is to make this program accessible and equitable to everybody. Is, you know, one of the other things you can match with is materials. So in this example, this was a community garden in which a local Boy Scout put together these picnic tables. A landscape company provided the mulch and provided the rocks around here, and we valued that material contribution as part of their cost match. We also value professional services. So in that same community garden, they had a landscape architect who designed the garden out, and we valued his services as well. And then about half of our matches come from volunteer hours. We value volunteer hours at about $25 an hour, and that's neighborhoods really putting together the sweat equity to put these projects together themselves, as you can see here. And we actually enjoy this part of it because it's how neighbors get to know neighbors. It's really how you empower neighborhoods and build a sense of community, is when you allow neighborhoods to put in that sweat equity and do what they can together. Now, also to make this program equitable, we've built a pretty large span of partnerships. We have 2 AmeriCorps Vistas who work with our program, who are dedicated full-time to outreaching to low-income areas, making sure this program is accessible to low-income communities within Austin, giving extra application help, and specifically targeting our outreach to low-income areas of Austin. When we work with community gardens or in parks, we're working with our Parks Foundation, our Sustainable Food Center. And then when we've got a group called Go Austin for Almost Austin, which is about community outreach, especially with our Hispanic community in Southeast Austin. They've been an awesome partner with us. And we've built a number of professional partnerships. We've working with a number of University of Texas classes, civil engineering, communications, liberal arts, business classes, and they do a lot of projects for a lot of our communities. That's through the University of Texas. And finally, you know, one of the things that we found early on is, you know, people who can access this program generally have drawing skills where they can show us a drawing of what they want. And we've built relationships with the American Institute of Architects here in Austin and the American Society of Landscape Architects in Austin to provide pro bono design services for neighborhoods who want to just give a concept of what they want to pitch in their neighborhood. So those have been fantastic partners for us to make this program more accessible. And so what are some of the projects we've been able to do through this program? We've been able to take this street, which was really hard to cross because there was a community center here, and we've been able to build pedestrian refuge islands. The neighborhood here is maintaining all the plants as part of their cost match. We've been able to take, this was a side of a pool house. It was just a cinder block building, and we had partnered with artists in the neighborhood there, and they were able to turn it into a really beautiful mosaic. We've taken vacant lots. This one was bought out because it was in the floodplain, and we've been able to turn them into community gardens. And we've got 2 community gardens that our program has built. And so just to maybe walk through a case example of a typical case that I would maybe work through. This is E.M. Franklin Avenue. It's 44 feet of right-of-way, straight away. As a lot of you planners might know, I mean, this is prime for speeding, right? It's just a giant runway. And the neighborhood wanted to do something here to calm traffic more than speed bumps. And when they tried to contact, you know, our city, our solution, of course, was speed bumps. And they said, no, we don't want speed bumps. We want, you know, something like Seattle's curvy S Street, or we want something more. And finally, our program got involved, and we told them, okay, well, why don't you pitch to us what you want? Why don't you generate what you want, and we'll see what we can do. And so they put together a charrette. They worked with the University of Texas School of Architecture. This was a student project in which they developed some concepts for what the street could be. They involved the whole neighborhood and rallied the neighborhood around a charrette. This was then presented, something like this was presented to us, where they wanted an S kind of shape where you wind through the street, and all of these would be rain gardens. It's really innovative. But we took a look at this and we said, you know, this is awesome, but it's also going to be really expensive just because how much curb is, and we know this as a public works department. But we see what you're going for. How do we make this happen? And so this evolved into this, where, you know, the green is still the rain gardens. These are median islands with trees, and the blue is street art. So we're going to do it with paint instead of curb, and having bike lanes. And so that evolved, and we ended up rendering it. And so the street's going to end up looking something like this. This is scheduled for construction this summer, with rain gardens and street trees and bike lanes. We're going to have a sidewalk here. And so this is going to be a really cool project when it's all said and done. And it's basically this formula of, you know, neighborhood-initiated ideas, and then we as staff providing our professional expertise, and we working together on making these places great. And that's really what I love about our program, is just how hands-on government and citizens can be when we work together through ideas. So in this, usually how it happens is, you know, someone has an idea, and I'm here with a bunch of city staff, and we're vetting out a neighborhood's idea on site, neighborhood and staff, talking about the idea, whether it would work or not. You know, and then if a project is controversial or is we anticipating controversial, we might hold a charrette and invite more neighborhoods and show our designs, and work through it together against neighborhoods and staff working through things together. And then we'll construct things together. So we'll bring our city crews, and the neighborhoods will do their part. Here we're installing a birdhouse that the neighbors built with our Austin Energy. And then finally we'll celebrate together. When it's all said and done, we build the project. We'll invite the council members, we'll invite our directors. We end up having a great ribbon cutting event, and it's really a beautiful process in which, you know, we're all working together, we're all on the same page, and it's built such goodwill within the Austin community, this program. So it's been a lot of fun, and again, I think it's easily replicable anywhere. And so we've been just trying to think what kind of things could go through this process, and things we've worked on are community gardens and art and park improvements and bicycle lanes and sidewalks and, you know, pocket parks, landscape habitats, basically infill neighborhood infrastructure that can really be accessed through this program. And usually generally things are under about around $100,000. Usually under $150,000 is most of the things, and neighborhoods are really matching about 30% of that per our rules, again with any combination of cash, in-kind, volunteer hours, and so it's been pretty awesome. And so with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to John, and thank you so much.
All right, I have two screens, so hopefully everyone can see my presentation. If not, let me know.
You're good to go.
Good to go. Okay,
yep.
Good. All right, so I'm John Zeanah. I'm Deputy Director of Planning and Development in Memphis and Shelby County, formerly with the Office of Sustainability here, which is the agency that led the planning process between 2012 and the end of 2014 to develop Greenprint 2015-2040, which is a 25-year sustainability plan that seeks to connect a network of green space in the greater Memphis region. So we were funded by a $2.6 million HUD Sustainable Communities Regional Planning Grant. Of course, there was a number of the regional planning grants awarded across the country. We focused ours on this network of green space because really the history of working regionally in an area of the country that obviously is an urbanized area but crosses 3 states. Our history was not good in terms of how the 3 states sort of coordinated on planning issues. Green space was something that was viewed by stakeholders across all 3 states as really a common value and a way to connect across what are some pretty significant natural assets into the built environments of the urban, suburban, and rural areas of the region. So we really started, I think, on a good footing in terms of being able to talk across those different boundaries that had in the past sort of separated the region to be able to build consensus on topics of sustainability and sort of regional planning. So our plan connects all of Shelby County, Tennessee, which is the county that Memphis is a part of, and then portions of Fayette County, Tennessee, Crittenden County, Arkansas, and DeSoto County, Mississippi. So one of the things that I think we really put an emphasis on in our planning effort in order to have a successful and effective plan was that the plan had to be as inclusive as possible. So one thing that we did there was, like all the other regional planning grantees, we had our planning consortium, which involved organizations like municipal and county governments, other government agencies, nonprofit organizations, neighborhood groups, etc. But we really tried to open membership to the consortium, across the region as widely as possible, and sort of kept membership open throughout the process. So we were always consistently trying to bring new people in to participate with the consortium and with the working groups of the consortium, and really tried to design the process so that if a new person came in sort of midway through, they could quickly engage in what the planning consortium had been working on. We also, one of our 8 working groups was focused on social equity, so they informed a lot of not just the recommendations that went into the plan about how the plan can ensure equity across the region, but also how equity is being measured in terms of the type of participation that we're getting in the plan process. So we, over the course of the 2.5 years, got input from well over 4,000 residents from the tri-state area, which certainly, that could be a much bigger number, but in the past, I think a lot of the planning efforts that we've seen in our region, the engagement, it's sort of very by the book, and a lot of the engagement sort of checks the box of did you conduct your meetings in this certain fashion, and didn't really kind of push the envelope in terms of creative ways, innovative ways to involve the public. So our equity working group not only helped sort of expand our thinking about the ways in which we're reaching the public, but they also actively work to sort of survey participation along the way, so that we made sure that we were reaching as broad of a set of communities as we can. So, and I'd say another thing too that we did in the public engagement phase to be more inclusive is with our public engagement strategies, we sort of allowed ourselves to fail, and whenever strategies would sort of only result in a few people showing up, we sort of took that sort of lesson to adjust and search for new ways to better engage the public. So, for example, one of the things that we found just didn't work as well is setting up a community meeting at a community center and asking residents of the community to come to us. we just didn't really get great participation doing that. One of the things that we did differently was we would work with existing organizations, neighborhood associations, other sorts of groups that are already organized around a specific topic, and go to them, get on their agenda, and have a presentation that was structured for the amount of time that we had, to be able to present the information that needed to be presented in order to, in the remaining time, get meaningful feedback from the participants in that meeting. So I think we ended up doing probably about 40 or 50 of those, and got really big participation numbers that way. Another thing that we did that really towards the end, and I wish we had done it more, is we would go to transit centers where bus riders are switching buses, and typically they have 15-20 minutes that they're waiting in between switching buses. So we'd have sort of an informational table set up, and we'd be there for a day. We ended up getting a lot of people talking with us, sharing their feedback through that means. A lot of people who talked with us there, they immediately approached the table because they thought maybe we were changing their bus route, so they were pleased to learn that that's not what we were doing. So willing to spend a little time with us. So I'd say the other sort of main element that we really tried to focus on was making sure that our plan was well integrated in terms of how a network of green space connects to transportation and housing and economic development, environment, health. So I guess in the plan itself, the main sort of centerpiece is this concept map that recommends a network of 500 miles of trails and 200 miles of on-street connections that link communities across our tri-state region. And then that network uses things like stream corridors, rail corridors, utility corridors to connect really intentionally areas where people live, where they work, and of course green spaces. And that's sort of reflected in the way that the concept map was developed. We looked very strategically at how the transit network sort of aligned with the potential for green space connections. We really sort of studied population density, areas of high focus for ensuring equity, employment density, and then of course open space. I think the result is a network that really well balances where people work, where they live, where they play. So if we were able to implement the entire thing today, the over green spaces in the region are directly connected to one of these corridors. But I think maybe more interesting to the point of how the plan is integrated, nearly 80% of the region's population and 80% of the region's jobs are connected within 1 mile of a corridor. So that really, I think, sort of provides the opportunity to think about how people are moving through our region using these corridors. And then additionally, to the point of how the plan sort of integrated, the plan includes 8 strategic directions that are, each of these 8 strategic directions include objectives and actions. There are over 150 actions that are in the plan, but they're sort of broken out in these 8 areas that aligned with the 8 working groups that were in the consortium, so that not only does the concept map for a connected system of green space sort of touch on how we're sort of connecting all of these different buckets of sustainability, but what are the strategies that also go along with those. And one of the things too that I think maybe is a little different, but hopefully we'll start to see more of in the practice of planning, is Memphis and Shelby County participated as a pilot community for American Planning Association's Comprehensive Planning for Sustaining Places initiative that I guess really kind of got forming in 2013. The pilot initiative that we participated in was in 2014, I believe that APA is really looking at kind of ramping that up this year or next year, and I'm participating as part of a panel at the National Planning Conference on the Comprehensive Planning for Sustaining Places. But what we did was we took sort of the Comprehensive Planning for Sustaining Places framework, looked at the principles and practices that were part of that framework after our first year, which was sort of the visioning phase, and we really sort of tried to identify how well is our vision that we've sort of sketched out as a draft plan addressing the multiple principles and practices that are included in this Comprehensive Planning for Sustaining Places framework. So this slide here is actually a visualization of the sort of first cut analysis that we did to look at which of these practices are we addressing strongly in the vision, which could we address more, which are not addressed that maybe we need to put a little more attention on as we move into sort of the second phase of this process. We're really kind of transitioning from that overall vision to creating the final plan, which was the plan selected by the Division for Excellence and Sustainability. And I think having this tool and being able to apply some of the practices, the principles and practices from the framework into our thinking really helps drive us to, I think, have a more comprehensive plan as it relates to, integrating sustainability. And again, I think as this certification process becomes formalized through APA, this is going to become a really valuable tool for communities across the country, and as they're thinking about, how their comprehensive plan addresses sustainability. So I expect that more and more over the years we'll see, not only many more plans that are integrating sustainability in comprehensive planning, but of course more competitive applications for this particular award through the Sustainable Communities Division as well. So I've finished with my contact information here, so if there are any other questions that aren't addressed at the end of the webinar, feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to share anything about the plan we did.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to go ahead and turn into some questions. Let me get contact information up here for everybody before we get started on these Q&As. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We have a lot of questions, so I'm just going to kind of start from the top and work our way down. Our first question is for Neil for the Devens development. What is the anecdotal comfort like using the Mr. Slim HVAC system? Is each room or unit controlled individually, or is it a house-wide system?
That's a good question. Most houses basically use, because they have an open floor plan, they only need to use one unit on each level. For the bedrooms and upstairs, the upstairs areas, essentially the homeowners have told us as long as they leave their door open a crack, they don't need an individual unit in their room. If they need more privacy, they can put an individual unit in their room, but typically the open floor plan really allows them to the air to circulate, the conditioned air to circulate really freely, and the double wall insulation basically keeps the house at a constant temperature for a much longer period of time.
Great, thanks. Another question for you. Anything from the pilot project that didn't pan out as intended?
Yeah, one of the, so I really focused on the single-family homes in the presentation, but the multifamily homes, because they were condominium units, there's 3 units in each of the 4 buildings that were developed. The units themselves, or the buildings themselves, scored a HERS rating of 38, which, if you recall from the HERS scale that I mentioned, 100 is about a code-built house and 0 is net zero energy, so the lower the score, the better. Generally, if you get down to a HERS rating between 35 and 40, you can offset the rest of the house energy needs with solar. Those multifamily units, because they're condominiums, didn't integrate solar into the project, so while they have a very low HERS rating, they aren't technically net zero until the owners decide to put solar on the roofs. But the developer did construct the roofs to be solar ready, so they are stable to support additional panels if they're needed.
Great. And then one last question for you. The question is the Devens project off-grid? And if you could explain also the difference between off-grid, net metering, net zero, those terms.
Sure. So the project is not off-grid. So it is all the homes are tied into the Devens utility system. So off-grid refers to basically a house that's not connected to a municipal utility system or electric system or water or sewer. It's basically a self-sufficient home. These aren't that, but they do have net metering, which means so those positive energy homes that I mentioned that are beyond net zero, they are connected to the grid so that when they're producing energy and the house isn't utilizing that energy, it feeds that excess energy back into the grid. And basically the homeowner's meters are spinning backwards. So they're basically selling power back to the power supplier, and that's what's, offsetting their energy usage. Battery storage to keep them right off the grid would be very expensive at this point. Although with solar or with electric vehicles becoming more and more prevalent, the electric vehicles, if the people own electric vehicles in these homes, they're essentially they can act as a battery storage or a backup generator for the home. So the excess electricity that they're generating, they can use to charge their cars. If the power went out, they could actually hook up their car to power their home. It's a really neat feature, and I think we're going to see more and more of that as electric vehicles come on. More electric vehicles come online.
Great, thank you. Rhonda, there's a couple questions here for you. And also, if you could just mouse click once anywhere on your screen.
Okay.
Perfect. Your toolbar was up, so I wanted to get rid of it. Okay. In designing and constructing the nature play area, given that this was a departure from traditional children's playgrounds, did you encounter any challenges or resistance in working with the park's operations staff related specifically to maintenance issues or ADA accessibility, safety, and if so, how did you resolve any of these issues?
So that might be a question that I should follow up with our park staff, but I do know that it was a very, very complicated construction process because we actually had 3 different contractors working in tandem because there was no one firm that could do all the elements. We had to hire multiple firms to complete all the elements. So it was a very unique contracting scenario. I don't know a lot about the ADA challenges. There is a little bit of slope there, but there is a pathway that runs through it. So I'm afraid I have to follow up about the ADA issues that I know were a big deal in the design and in the construction of it. But we had multiple contractors working together to complete the project, which was very unique and very challenging. But ultimately, it worked out okay.
Okay, thank you. And for that person who asked the question, if you just want to follow up via email, and Rhonda can get you more info. Next question for you, Rhonda. Can you please provide again the name of the nature-based playbook?
Yeah, let me find it again. It is Last Child in the Woods, Nature Deficit Disorder by Richard Louv. That's L-O-U-V as in Victor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Justin, we have a couple questions for you. Has the program ever had a project in a crime-ridden park that helped to mitigate the level of crime there?
Not off the top of my head. No, I don't think, not off the top of my head.
Okay. And the case study that you showed us, which I think is really cool, what is the right-of-way width of the Franklin Avenue Street?
I think we had 44 feet of right-of-way there.
Okay. Next question for you, Justin. Is there a dedicated city budget for the program that would include staffing?
Yeah, so we basically have, we got a bond for $1.2 million, which is kind of kicked off the program. We actually asked for $600,000 in the bond process, and council liked the program so much they doubled what we asked for. So we got $1.2 million, which is awesome. And then since we're about to spend out that bond money, we have $500,000 a year for projects out of our operating budget. And then we, you know, staffing-wise, it's myself, and I've got a EIT engineer working under me, and then 2 AmeriCorps Vistas. You know, maybe I would say maybe it's 150,000 or so for staffing that we have.
Okay. And then with that, what have been the leveraged funding levels, any other private funding or grants, any other sources of funding?
I mean, the main sources that come from is, you know, we're able to leverage, you know, when we get sidewalk requests, we're able to utilize fee in lieu money or park fee in lieu money sometimes. We're able to leverage different sources that the city has as that one-stop shop. And then generally, neighborhoods are averaging, you know, 31% of their cost match. They're cost matching about 31% about the cost of the projects. And so they're the ones that are really leveraging with us.
Okay, thank you. And we have a couple questions for John. Let's see here. You stated in the beginning of your presentation about conducting some non-traditional meetings. Could you go a little further into that and discuss what type of organizations the person asking the question suggests? Girl Scouts, Rotaries, farmers markets?
A lot of the meetings that we did, you know, where we'd go to groups, you know, it was mostly neighborhood associations or just sort of community advocacy type groups. Trying to think if you know, issue groups. I mean, that was really the types of organizations that we tried to reach out to. You know, those that were established and sort of had existing, you know, monthly agendas that we knew that, you know, we get on the agenda, we're going to be able to talk with, you know, 25 to 50 people who typically come, whether it's in a neighborhood or a church group or something like that. I mean, that was really the types of organizations we were trying to identify.
Great. And related, you discussed several outreach approaches. How was the crowdsource tool that you mentioned in one of your slides? How was that used?
We worked with Shareabouts, which is a product of Open Plans, and we took Shareabouts and kind of created a portal of our website that allowed for the public to come onto our website. They go onto the Shareabouts page, and they're able to zoom all the way down to the property level, and drop a pin in a specific place in their neighborhood or just somewhere in the community that they had an idea for, or that maybe it was a green space that needed a little more love, or perhaps it was an area that was sort of an issue space for their community. But be able to just drop a pin in that property and tell us a little bit more about on the ground the types of improvements that they would like to see. So that really obviously gave us some very granular ideas that people had about their community that people have kind of had for years and never really been able to articulate it in a process like this. But it also gave us an opportunity, because we sort of tagged these different pins that were suggested by different topic areas. It allowed us to kind of aggregate those ideas into some broader regional and community-wide themes that helped us really sort of shift how we were identifying and articulating in the plan the priorities that the community had expressed. So and that was really done, that platform was done in tandem with a lot of the in-person engagement. So and the point of that was, if you couldn't come to our meetings, or if you weren't part of one of these groups, or if just we weren't reaching individuals in an in-person way, whether it was where we were going, or whether it was just the lack of time, this was a way for individuals to just be able to come onto the website and very quickly give us some feedback beyond just what could be accomplished with a survey or kind of open-ended input tools online.
Okay, thank you. Has any of the Greenway been constructed? And if you could talk about the current status of that project.
Sure. So we already had about 50 of the 500 miles on the ground when we wrapped up the plan, and so of course a good bit of that was just sort of connecting into connections that already existed, and leveraging those. We have, and during the process, there were several projects that were already in some stage of development. So we still, today, we have probably another 50 miles that are underway. So we expect within the next 5 years, those 50 miles will be done. So we'll have 100 out of the 500 in the next 5 years. And those range from kind of some big projects. One of the corridors that was on the map there that I showed runs from the Mississippi River all the way east into Fayette County, which was one of the counties included across Shelby County, and runs along a river. That's a 20-mile project, but we also have 2-mile segments that are abandoned rail that are in some stage of design or engineering or construction. But I think the bigger picture thing that we're working on right now is transitioning the plan to implementation. We were able to leverage some funds from a local private foundation to put a staff member in our office to sort of coordinate a long-term strategy of propping up an organization that can work with those existing organizations that are already working on Greenway projects, but can also fill the gap in areas where there isn't much activity, but there are sort of critical projects that really provide a foundation for building out the network over the next 25 years. So that transition process is not only kind of working on, like I said, sort of propping up that organization, but working with existing partners so that information about grant funding and other funding is getting into the hands of the people who already have a project that is in some stage of development or some stage of conceptualization, so that we can see some pretty rapid results. But we've also been able to look at how the plan is again sort of more than greenways. So one of the key features of the network is that it connects a lot of stream corridors. Those areas obviously have residential and commercial areas nearby that are prone to flood because of their proximity to stream corridors. And we were able to, through Shelby County, which was one of the eligible applicants of HUD's National Disaster Resilience Competition, use the Greenprint as a foundation of our proposal for that billion-dollar competition. And just last month, we were awarded over $60 million to be able to do green stormwater infrastructure solutions in 3 areas of the county that build off of the Greenprint and not only sort of connect greenway infrastructure as part of those projects, but include things like reconnecting the stream to floodplains, expanding wetlands, other types of sort of natural green stormwater solutions to protect those areas from flood.
With that, I guess, who are the primary organizations on the ground doing the implementation that you work with? Is it kind of municipality to municipality or county to county, nonprofit to nonprofit?
A little bit of both. So the city of Memphis has done quite a bit. The Shelby County has done quite a bit, and then some of the suburbs around the region have already have done quite a bit, and all sort of in different ways. One suburb in the county, the town of Collierville, they actually had a greenways plan years ago that sort of we were able to just kind of plop right into what we were doing. But one thing that they sort of did early on with their greenways plan was if there was development that sort of touched the right-of-way of a proposed greenway, they required the developer set aside that space for future greenway. So they were able to get a lot done over time with that mechanism. The city of Memphis has partnered with a nonprofit land conservancy called the Wolf River Conservancy. I mentioned the Wolf River Greenways, that 20-mile connection, to effectively have a public-private partnership to be able to implement that project. So the Wolf River Conservancy obviously brings a lot of value, being sort of the land stewards for that watershed. They work on acquiring properties that are sensitive along the Wolf River corridor, which obviously can be leveraged for development over time. But they also can help raise funds for the Wolf River Greenway, and bring funds into a situation where the city of Memphis on its own wouldn't necessarily be able to put up the capital to develop that greenway as quickly as partnership with the Conservancy has been able to provide because of the competing priorities within the CIP that the city takes on. And same with Shelby County working with the Shelby Farms Park Conservancy, which has been a partner in building out the Shelby Farms Green Line, which is a rail to trail that right now is 6 miles long, and pretty soon will be another 6 miles long. So we've really had a lot of success with public-private partnerships and kind of leveraging resources from city, county governments as well as nonprofits.
Okay, thank you. We've reached the end of today's webcast. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, please feel free to email our speakers. And thanks to the Sustainable Communities Division for sponsoring today's webcast, and Jennifer Koch from the division, and of course our speakers, Neil and Rhonda, Justin and John. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. And everyone have a great weekend, and we will talk next time. Thank you.